High windows. To the sea. To step over the low wall that divides road from concrete walk above the shore brings sharply back something known long before, the miniature gaiety of seasides. Everything crowds under the low horizon, steep beach, blue water, towels, red bathing caps, the small hushed waves repeated fresh collapse up the warm yellow sand, and further off a white steamer stuck in the afternoon. Still going on, all of it, still going on, to lie, eat, sleep, in hearing of the surf, ears to transistors, that sound tame enough under the sky, or gently up and down lead the uncertain children, frilled in white and grasping at enormous air, or wheel the rigid old along for them to feel a final summer plainly still occurs as half an annual pleasure, half a rite. As when, happy at being on my own, I search the sand for famous cricketers, or, farther back, my parents, listeners to the same seaside quack, first became known. Strange to it now, I watch the cloudless scene, the same clear water over smoothed pebbles, the distant bathers' weak protesting trebles down at its edge, and then the cheap cigars, the chocolate papers, tea leaves, and between the rocks, the rusting soup tins, till the first few families start the trek back to the cars. The white summer has gone. Like breathed-on glass, the sunlight has turned milky. If the worst of flawless weather is our falling short, it may be that through habit these do best, coming to water clumsily undressed, yearly, teaching their children by a sort of clowning, helping the old, too, as they ought. Sympathy in white major. When I drop 4 cubes of ice chimingly in a glass and add 3 goes of gin, a lemon slice, and let a 10-ounce tonic void in foaming gulps until it smothers everything else up to the edge, I lift the lot in private pledge. He devoted his life to others. While other people wore like clothes the human beings in their days, I set myself to bring to those who thought I could the lost displays. It didn't work for them or me, but all concerned were nearer thus, or so we thought, to all the fuss, that if we'd missed it separately. A decent chap, a real good sort, straight as a die, one of the best, a brick, a trump, a proper sport, head and shoulders above the rest. How many lives would have been duller had he not been here below? Here's to the whitest man I know, though white is not my favorite color. The trees. The trees are coming into leaf, like something almost being said. The recent buds relax and spread. Their greenness is a kind of grief. Is it that they are born again and we grow old? No, they die too. Their yearly trick of looking new is written down in rings of grain. Yet still the unresting castles thresh in full-grown thickness every May. Last year is dead, they seem to say. Begin afresh, afresh, afresh. Livings. 1. I deal with farmers Things like dips and feed. Every third month I book myself in at the hotel in for 3 days. The boots carries my lean old leather case up to a single where I hang my hat. 1 beer and then the dinner, at which I read the Times from soup to stewed pears. Births, deaths, for sale, police court, motor spares. Afterwards, whiskey in the smoke-room. Clough, Margetts, the captain, Dr. Watterson, who makes ends meet, who's taking the knock, government tariffs, wages, price of stock. Smoke hangs under the light. The pictures on the walls are comic. Hunting, the trenches, stuff nobody minds or notices. A sound of dominoes from the bar. I stand around. Later, the square is empty. A big sky drains down the estuary like the bed of a gold river, and the customs house still has its office lit. I drowse between ex-army sheets, wondering why I think it's worthwhile coming. Father's dead. He used to, but the business now is mine. It's time for change. In 1929. 2. 70 feet down, the sea explodes upwards, relapsing to slaver off landing stage steps, running suds. Rejoice. Rocks writhe back to sight. Mussels, limpets, husband their tenacity in the freezing slither. Creatures, I cherish you. By day, sky builds grape dark over the salt, unsown, stirring fields. Radio rubs its legs, telling me of elsewhere. Barometers falling, ports wind-shuttered, fleets pent like hounds, fires in humped inns, kippering sea pictures. Keep it all off. By night, snow swerves, O loose moth world, through the stair, travelling, leather-black waters. Guarded by brilliance, I set plate and spoon, and after, divining cards. Lit, shelved liners grope like mad worlds westward. 3. Tonight we dine without the master. Nocturnal vapours do not please. The port goes round so much the faster. Topics are raised with no less ease. Which advowson looks the fairest? What the wood from Snape will fetch? Names for pudendum mulieris. Why is Judas like Jack Ketch? The candle flames grow thin, then broaden. Our butler starveling piles the logs, and sets behind the screen a Jordan, quicker than going to the bogs. The wine heats temper and complexion, oath-enforced assertions fly on roomy fevers, resurrection, regicide, and rabbit pie. The fields around are cold and muddy. The cobbled streets close by are still. A sizar shivers at his study. The kitchen cat has made a kill. The bells discuss the hour's gradations. Dusty shelves hold prayers and proofs. Above, Chaldean constellations sparkle over crowded roofs. Forget what did. Stopping the diary was a stun to memory, was a blank starting. One no longer cicatrized by such words, such actions, as bleakened waking. I wanted them over, hurried to burial, and looked back on like the wars and winters, missing behind the windows of an opaque childhood. And the empty pages, should they ever be filled, let it be with observed celestial recurrences, the day the flowers come, and when the birds go. High windows. When I see a couple of kids and guess he's fucking her and she's taking pills or wearing a diaphragm, I know this is paradise. Everyone old has dreamed of all their lives. Bonds and gestures pushed to one side like an outdated combine harvester, and everyone young going down the long slide to happiness, endlessly. I wonder if anyone looked at me 40 years back and thought, that'll be the life. No God anymore, or sweating in the dark, about hell and that, or having to hide what you think of the priest. He and his lot will all go down the long slide like free bloody birds. And immediately, rather than words, comes the thought of high windows, the sun-comprehending glass, and beyond it, the deep blue air that shows nothing, and is nowhere, and is endless. Friday night in the Royal Station Hotel. Light spreads darkly downwards from the high clusters of lights over empty chairs that face each other, colored differently. Through open doors, the dining room declares a larger loneliness of knives and glass, and silence laid like carpet. A porter reads an unsold evening paper. Hours pass, and all the salesmen have gone back to Leeds, leaving full ashtrays in the conference room. In shoeless corridors, the lights burn. How isolated, like a fort, it is. The headed paper made for writing home, if home existed. Letters of exile. Now night comes on. Waves fold behind villages. The old fools. What do you think has happened to the old fools to make them like this? Do they somehow suppose it's more grown up when your mouth hangs open and drools, and you keep on pissing yourself, and can't remember who called this morning? Or that, if they only chose, they could alter things back to when they danced all night, or went to their wedding, or sloped arms some September? Or do they fancy there's really been no change, and they've always behaved as if they were crippled or tight, or sat through days of thin, continuous dreaming, watching light move? If they don't, and they can't, it's strange. Why aren't they screaming? At death, you break up. The bits that were you start speeding away from each other forever, with no one to see. It's only oblivion, true. We had it before, but then it was going to end, and was all the time merging with a unique endeavor to bring to bloom the million-petaled flower of being here. Next time you can't pretend there'll be anything else, and these are the first signs, not knowing how, not hearing who, the power of choosing gone. Their looks show that they're for it. Ash hair, toad hands, prune face dried into lines. How can they ignore it? Perhaps being old is having lighted rooms inside your head and people in them acting, people you know, yet can't quite name. Each looms like a deep loss restored, from known doors turning, setting down a lamp, smiling from a stare, extracting a known book from the shelves, or sometimes only the rooms themselves, chairs and a fire burning, the blown bush at the window, or the sun's faint friendliness on the wall, some lonely rain-ceased midsummer evening. That is where they live, not here and now, but where all happened once. This is why they give an air of baffled absence, trying to be there, yet being here. For the rooms go farther, leaving incompetent cold, the constant wear and tear of taken breath, and them crouching below extinction's alp, the old fools, never perceiving how near it is. This must be what keeps them quiet, the peak that stays in view wherever we go, for them is rising ground. Can they never tell what is dragging them back, and how it will end? Not at night, not when the strangers come, never throughout the whole hideous inverted childhood. Well, we shall find out. Going. I thought it would last my time, the sense that beyond the town there would always be fields and farms where the village louts could climb, such trees as were not cut down. I knew there'd be false alarms in the papers about old streets and split-level shopping, but some have always been left so far. And when the old parts retreat, as the bleak high-rises come, we can always escape in the car. Things are tougher than we are, just as Earth will always respond, however we mess it about. Chuck filth in the sea if you must. The tides will be clean beyond. But what do I feel now? Doubt? Or age, simply? The crowd is young in the M1 cafe. Their kids are screaming for more houses, more parking allowed, more caravan sites, more pay. On the business page, a score of spectacled grins approve some takeover bid that entails 5% profit and 10% more in the estuaries. Move your works to the unspalt dales, grey area grants. And when you try to get near the sea in summer, it seems just now to be happening so very fast. Despite all the land left free, for the first time I feel somehow that it isn't going to last. That before I snuff it, the whole boiling will be bricked in except for the tourist parts. First slum of Europe, a role it won't be so hard to win, with a cast of crooks and tarts. And that will be England gone, the shadows, the meadows, the lanes, the guild halls, the carved choirs. There'll be books. It will linger on in galleries, but all that remains for us will be concrete and tires. Most things are never meant. This won't be, most likely. But greeds and garbage are too thick strewn to be swept up now, or invent excuses that make them all needs. I just think it will happen soon. The card players. Jan van Hogspew staggers to the door and pisses at the dark. Outside, the rain courses in cart ruts down the deep mud lane. Inside, Dirk Dogstuld pours himself some more and holds a cinder to his clay with tongs, belching out smoke. Old Preach snores with the gale, his skull face firelit. Someone behind drinks ale, and opens muscles, and croaks scraps of songs towards the ham-hung rafters about love. Dirk deals the cards. Wet, century-wide trees clash in surrounding starlessness above this lamplit cave, where Jan turns back and farts, gobs at the grate, and hits the Queen of Hearts. Rain, wind, and fire, the secret, bestial peace. The building. Higher than the handsomest hotel, the lucent comb shows up for miles. But see, all round it close-ribbed streets rise and fall, like a great sigh out of the last century. The porters are scruffy. What keep drawing up at the entrance are not taxis, and in the hall as well as creepers hangs a frightening smell. There are paperbacks and tea at so much a cup, like an airport lounge. But those who tamely sit on rows of steel chairs, turning the ripped mags, haven't come far. More like a local bus, these outdoor clothes and half-filled shopping bags, and faces restless and resigned, although every few minutes comes a kind of nurse to fetch someone away. The rest refit cups back to saucers, cough, or glance below seats for dropped gloves or cards. Humans caught on ground curiously neutral. Homes and names suddenly in abeyance. Some are young, some old, but most at that vague age that claims the end of choice, the last of hope. And all here to confess that something has gone wrong. It must be error of a serious sort, for see how many floors it needs, how tall it's grown by now, and how much money goes in trying to correct it. See the time, 11:30 on a working day, and these picked out of it. See, as they climb to their appointed levels, how their eyes go to each other, guessing. On the way, someone's wheeled past, in washed-to-rags ward clothes. They see him too. They're quiet. To realize this new thing held in common makes them quiet. For past these doors are rooms, and rooms past those, and more rooms yet, each one further off and harder to return from. And who knows which he will see, and when. For the moment, wait, look down at the yard. Outside seems old enough. Red brick, lagged pipes, and someone walking by it out to the car park, free. Then, past the gate, traffic. A locked church. Short terraced streets where kids chalk games, and girls with hairdos fetch their separates from the cleaners. O world, your loves, your chances are beyond the stretch of any hand from here. And so, unreal, a touching dream to which we all are lulled, but wake from separately. In it, conceits and self-protecting ignorance congeal to carry life, collapsing only when called to these corridors. For now, once more, the nurse beckons. Each gets up and goes at last. Some will be out by lunch, or 4. Others, not knowing it, have come to join the unseen congregations whose white rows lie set apart above. Women, men, old, young, crude facets of the only coin this place accepts. All know they are going to die. Not yet, perhaps not here, but in the end, and somewhere like this. That is what it means this clean sliced cliff, a struggle to transcend the thought of dying. For unless its powers outbuild cathedrals, nothing contravenes the coming dark, though crowds each evening try, with wasteful, weak, propitiatory flowers. Posterity. Jake Balakovsky, my biographer, has this page microfilmed. Sitting inside his air-conditioned cell at Kennedy, in jeans and sneakers, he's no call to hide some slight impatience with his destiny. I'm stuck with this old fart at least a year. I wanted to teach school in Tel Aviv, but Myra's folks, he makes the money sign, insisted I got tenure. When there's kids, he shrugs. It's stinking dead, the research line. Just let me put this bastard on the skids. I'll get a couple of semesters leave to work on protest theater. They both rise, make for the Coke dispenser. What's he like? Christ, I just told you. Oh, you know the thing. That crummy textbook stuff from freshman psych. Not out of kicks or something happening. One of those old type, natural, fouled up guys. Dublinesque. Down stucco side streets where light is pewter, and afternoon mist brings lights on in shops, above race guides and rosaries. A funeral passes. The hearse is ahead, but after there follows a troop of streetwalkers in wide flowered hats, leg of mutton sleeves, and ankle-length dresses. There is an air of great friendliness, as if they were honoring one they were fond of. Some caper a few steps, skirts held skillfully. Someone claps time. And of great sadness also. As they wend away, a voice is heard singing of Kitty or Katie, as if the name meant once all love, all beauty. Homage to a government. Next year we are to bring the soldiers home, for lack of money, and it is all right. Places they guarded or kept orderly must guard themselves and keep themselves orderly. We want the money for ourselves at home instead of working, and this is all right. It's hard to say who wanted it to happen, but now it's been decided, nobody minds. The places are a long way off, not here, which is all right. And from what we hear, the soldiers there only made trouble happen. Next year we shall be easier in our minds. Next year we shall be living in a country that brought its soldiers home for lack of money. The statues will be standing in the same tree-muffled squares and look nearly the same. Our children will not know it's a different country. All we can hope to leave them now is money. 1969. This be the verse. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had, and add some extra, just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats, who half the time was soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can, and don't have any kids yourself. How distant. How distant the departure of young men, down valleys, or watching the green shore past the salt white cordage rising and falling, cattlemen or carpenters, or keen simply to get away, from married villages before morning. Melodeons play on tiny decks past fraying cliffs of water, or late at night, sweet, under the differently swung stars, when the chance sight of a girl doing her laundry in the steerage ramifies endlessly. This is being young, assumption of the startled century, like new store clothes, the huge decisions printed out by feet, inventing where they tread, the random windows conjuring a street. Sad steps. Groping back to bed after a piss, I part thick curtains and am startled by the rapid clouds, the moon's cleanliness. 4 o'clock. Wedge-shadowed gardens lie under a cavernous, a wind-picked sky. There's something laughable about this. The way the moon dashes through clouds that blow loosely as cannon smoke to stand apart, stone-colored light sharpening the roofs below. High and preposterous and separate, lozenge of love, medallion of art, O wolves of memory, immensements. No. One shivers slightly, looking up there, the hardness and the brightness, and the plain, far-reaching singleness of that wide stare is a reminder of the strength and pain of being young, that it can't come again, but is for others undiminished somewhere. Solar. Suspended lion face spilling at the center of an unfurnished sky. How still you stand, and how unaided, single stalkless flower, you pour unrecompensed. The eye sees you simplified by distance into an origin. Your petaled head of flames continuously exploding. Heat is the echo of your gold. Coined there among lonely horizontals, you exist openly. Our needs, hourly, climb and return like angels. Unclosing like a hand, you give forever. Annus Mirabilis. Sexual intercourse began in 1963, which was rather late for me, between the end of the Chatterley ban and the Beatles' first LP. Up till then, there'd only been a sort of bargaining, a wrangle for a ring, a shame that started at 16 and spread to everything. Then all at once the quarrel sank. Everyone felt the same, and every life became a brilliant breaking of the bank, a quite unlosable game. So life was never better than in 1963, though just too late for me, between the end of the Chatterley ban and the Beatles' first LP. Verre de Société. My wife and I have asked a crowd of craps to come and waste their time and ours, perhaps. You'd care to join us? In a pig's arse, friend. Day comes to an end. The gas fire breathes, the trees are darkly swayed. And so, dear Warlock Williams, I'm afraid. Funny how hard it is to be alone. I could spend half my evenings, if I wanted, holding a glass of washing sherry, canted over to catch the drivel of some bitch who's reading nothing but witch. Just think of all the spare time that has flown straight into nothingness by being filled with forks and faces rather than repaid under a lamp, hearing the noise of wind and looking out to see the moon thinned to an air-sharpened blade. A life, and yet how sternly it's instilled. All solitude is selfish. No one now believes the hermit with his gown and dish, talking to God, who's gone too. The big wish is to have people nice to you, which means doing it back somehow. Virtue is social. Are, then, these routines playing at goodness, like going to church? Something that bores us, something we don't do well, asking that ass about his fool research. But try to feel, because however crudely it shows us what should be. Too subtle, that. Too decent, too. Oh, hell. Only the young can be alone freely. The time is shorter now for company. And sitting by a lamp more often brings not peace, but other things. Beyond the light stand failure and remorse, whispering, "Dear Warlock Williams." Why? Of course. Show Saturday. Grey day for the show, but cars jam the narrow lanes. Inside on the field, judging has started. Dogs set their legs back, hold out their tails, and ponies, manes repeatedly smoothed to calm heads. Over there, sheep, Cheviot and Blackface, by the hedge, squealing logs, chainsaw competition. Each has its own keen crowd. In the main arena, more judges meet by a jeep. The jumping's on next. Announcements, splutteringly loud, clash with the quack of a man with pound notes round his hat and a lit-up board. There's more than just animals. Bead stalls, balloon men, a bank, a beer marquee that half screens a canvas gents, a tent selling tweed, and another jackets. Folk sit about on bales like great straw dice, for each scene is linked by spaces not given to anything much, where kids scrap, freed, while their owners stare different ways with incurious faces. The wrestling starts, late, a wide ring of people, then cars, then trees, then pale sky. Two young men in acrobat's tights and embroidered trunks hug each other, rock over the grass, stiff-legged in a two-man scrum. One falls, they shake hands. Two more start, one gray-haired. He wins, though. They're not so much fights as long, immobile strainings that end in unbalance, with one on his back, unharmed, while the other stands, smoothing his hair. But there are other talents. The long high tent of growing and making, wired-off wood tables past which crowds shuffle, eyeing the scrubbed, spaced extrusions of earth. Blanche leaks like church candles, 6 pods of broad beans, one split open, dark, shining leafed cabbages, rows of single supreme versions, followed, on laced paper mats, by dairy and kitchen. 4 brown eggs, 4 white eggs, 4 plain scones, 4 dropped scones, pure excellences that enclose a recession of skills. And after them, lambing sticks, rugs, needlework, knitted caps, baskets, all worthy, all well done. but less than the honeycombs. Outside, the jumping's over. The young ones thunder their ponies in competition twice round the ring. Then trick races, musical stalls, sliding off, riding bareback, the ponies dragged to and fro for bewildering requirements, not minding. But now, in the background, like shifting scenery, horse boxes move. Each crawls towards the stock entrance, tilting and swaying, bound for far-off farms. The pound note man decamps. The car park has thinned. Their loading jumps on a truck. Back now to private addresses, gates and lamps in high stone one-street villages, empty at dusk, and side roads of small towns. Sports finals stuck in front doors, allotments reaching down to the railway. Back now to autumn, leaving the ended husk of summer that brought them here for show Saturday. The men with hunters, dog-breeding, wool-defined women, children all saddle-swank, mug-faced middle-aged wives glaring at jellies, husbands on leave from the garden, watchful as weasels, car-tuning curt-haired sons. Back now, all of them, to their local lives, to names on vans and business calendars hung up in kitchens. Back to loud occasions in the corn exchange, to market days in bars, to winter coming. As the dismantled show itself dies back into the area of work, let it stay hidden there like strength, below sale bills and swindling. Something people do, not noticing how time's rolling smithy smoke shadows much greater gestures. Something they share that breaks ancestrally each year into regenerate union. Let it always be there. Money. Quarterly, is it? Money reproaches me. Why do you let me lie here wastefully? I am all you never had of goods and sex. You could get them still by writing a few checks. So I look at others, what they do with theirs. They certainly don't keep it upstairs. But now they've a second house and car and wife. Clearly money has something to do with life. In fact, they've a lot in common, if you inquire. You can't put off being young until you retire. And however you bank your screw, the money you save won't in the end buy you more than a shave. I listen to money singing. It's like looking down from long French windows at a provincial town. The slums, the canal, the churches ornate and mad in the evening sun. It is intensely sad. Cut grass. Cut grass lies frail. Brief is the breath, mown stalks exhale. Long, long the death, it dies in the white hours of young-leafed June, with chestnut flowers, with hedges snow-like strewn, white lilac bowed, lost lanes of Queen Anne's lace, and that high-builded cloud, moving at summer's pace. The explosion. On the day of the explosion, shadows pointed towards the pithead. In the sun, the slag heap slept. Down the lane came men in pit boots, coughing oath-edged talk and pipe smoke, shouldering off the freshened silence. One chased after rabbits, lost them, came back with a nest of lark's eggs, showed them, lodged them in the grasses. So they passed in beards and moleskins, fathers, brothers, nicknames, laughter, through the tall gate standing open. At noon there came a tremor. Cows stopped chewing for a second. Sun, scarfed as in a heat haze, dimmed. The dead go on before us. They are sitting in God's house in comfort. We shall see them face to face. Plain as lettering in the chapels, it was said, and for a second wives saw men of the explosion, larger than in life they managed, gold as on a coin, or walking somehow from the sun towards them, one showing the eggs unbroken.